fried chicken, so obviously lots of fat. Chips also, again, lots of fat because it's been deep fried. And yeah, so it's really a bad choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, bad choices. Remember, we're not live today, so I'm unable to take your calls. After the break, Sandra demonstrates how to cook delicious, healthier alternatives. If you've just joined us, we're talking about the Heart of Soweto Project. Sandra is now going to show us a few healthier alternatives. So out with the bad and in with the new. Talk us through the dish that you're going to prepare now.
Right, I'm going to make a very simple chicken dish. So I'm using chicken breast that's skinless. So the skin has been removed because the skin of a chicken contains lots of fat. So you want to remove that before you cook it.
Okay.
And then cut it in pieces. And then I'm just going to stir fry it in a little bit of oil because you don't want to use a lot of oil when preparing this.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to add some beans, which is high in fiber, soluble fiber. So you want to add that. It adds a bit of protein. It adds extra fiber to the meal.
Yeah.
Tomato, which is very good, full of antioxidants, green pepper, and then herbs and spices. And also, I don't add a lot of salt. I flavor it using herbs and spices.
Okay. So we've got to think more herbs and spices, because I think it was Anna saying that we put too much salt in our food. So think more herbs and spices when cooking and instead of...
Less salt and sauces containing salt and condiments and, you know, packets of high salt flavorings. You don't want to use that.
Okay. Well, let's start cooking, and then we can talk about the other healthy varieties that you have. So, like what, a spoon of...
A spoonful of oil. I'm going to use olive oil. You can also use sunflower oil.
Because I was going to say that, you know, cooking with olive oil is expensive.
That is more expensive. So sunflower oil, it's a vegetable oil, so you are allowed to use that in moderation. You never deep fry with it.
Yeah.
But basically, I'm using a spoonful, so one can do that as well.
Okay.
And then add the chicken to that.
Yeah. So it has to be chicken breasts. In order for it to be healthy, it's got to be chicken breast.
Also, you can also use lean red meat. So, for instance, you can prepare this dish using mint, where you use a topside mince, where there's hardly any fat.
Yeah.
Or if you use meat strips, remove all visible fat before you cook it.
Okay.
So the important thing is to use meat or chicken without fat. You can also use fish, where you use strips of fish.
Okay.
You do the same thing.
All right. And this is what you kind of teach. You would go through when you do your cooking classes with the ladies and the gentlemen. You'd go through the lean meats and what is best for you and what isn't best for you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then...
So you just saute that?
So I saute this, and then I will add onion.
Yeah. And while you're showing us that, what are some of the challenges that you've encountered, Sandra, in the whole workshop things that you've been doing with people in Soweto?
The one thing is obviously the first thing was to use foods that's acceptable, that's culturally is used and that is eaten. Also is to take into consideration your preparation methods. You know, not everyone has an oven available. So some people cook on 2-plate stoves.
Yes.
So the way I structured the class is that, and then I'm adding some green pepper, is that it's mostly something that you can cook either on a gas plate or on a 2-stove plate. It's one meal dishes like stir fries, and you can add lots of vegetables in there because it's also the idea is to incorporate more vegetables into the meal. And then also to show is to use less salt and to use more herbs and spices, because the preference way of flavouring is to add all sorts of high salt sauces and...
So well, this meal would be your typical meal because it's kind of like a one-pot meal. And then on the side...
easy to prepare. You add vegetables in it. And by also adding beans, you stretch your meal. So you can use a little bit less chicken or meat. That's the more expensive type of protein.
Yeah.
By adding lentils or kidney beans or sugar beans, which is the less expensive protein. Yeah. So that is also
so you would kind of serve that with the brown rice that you've brought
instead of the white maize porridge.
Okay. Yeah. I think we won't have time to see the end of that, but we kind of have the idea because then you'll pour in your beans.
I will put in the beans, the tomato paste, which is also very good. It's concentrated, so lots of antioxidants.
Yeah.
Then I would put in black pepper, a little bit of salt, add a little bit of salt to the food while it's cooked. You obviously then don't add more afterwards. And then I would use herbs and spices and experiment with herbs and spices because it's also a taste preference. And you can add garlic. I've also brought some chilies. Yeah. One can add chili.
So these are the other, these are the kind of the vegetables that you can play around with.
So you can experiment with is you can use fresh herbs or you can use the dried herbs and spices. I use smoked paprika for this dish, which adds a lovely flavour. So you can use less salt by using other flavourings.
Now, all the recipes that you do at the workshops, would they be available on a website?
They're available on the Socru website, and we've developed booklets where these recipes are in these booklets and they're on our website.
And the website is www.socru.org.
Yes.
And we were speaking about fruit, and you've brought in some. Would this be kind of going into winter? This be your preference?
So I brought along seasonal fruit because I think if you look at the recommendation for fruits and vegetables is 5 to 8 portions a day. And what I found when I did the survey is that people tend to eat maybe 1 or 2 fruits per week. And they would eat vegetables on a weekend, so once a week.
Yeah.
Whereas, like I say, the recommendation is 5 to 8 portions per day.
Yeah, so you've got to up it.
You have to increase your intake. And then the important thing is to look what's in season. Yeah. So I brought along, now it's coming in oranges, pomelos, papaya, apples, lots of apples. And then the vegetables the same. You would look what's in season, and obviously it's less expensive thing. Yeah. And also, in winter time, the vegetables and fruits that's in season high in vitamin C, which is what you need.
Which is good. Well, let's leave it there, Sandra. Thank you so much for the tips that you've given us. After the break, I'm rejoined by the experts. Welcome back, Professors Harry and Slower. If I can start with you, Prof, what are some of the things that one can do right now to avoid, unless it's genetic, of course, but to avoid having heart problems, diabetes, hypertension?
There we can start. Keep your body weight down.
Yeah.
We should emphasize that when you are fat, especially if you've got the fat around the tummy, you remember?
72 if you're a woman.
88 and 102, okay.
Okay, 88 for a woman, 102 for a man.
That's part and parcel, you see, of what we call the deadly quintet. If you are fat, especially here, you also got high blood pressure, you got diabetes, you got high blood fats, and you got high blood clotting.
Yeah.
And if you add to that smoking, drinking, and not exercising, that is the recipe for cardiac disaster.
Yeah. For you, Prof, what would it be?
There is nothing to add. That's exactly what it is. And exercise. I mean, exercise don't have to be fancy. Just walk a little bit. Take a friend, instead of sitting and eating, walk around the block. You can also talk while you walk.
Absolutely.
And there's practical things, and it has nothing to do with money. It's a mental switch. Don't switch, walk up.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of us, and I think I mentioned this to Sandra, a lot of us, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to healthy eating, we always think it's going to be more expensive than the way I'm eating or exercising now.
My darling, active living, housework, gardening,
walking
Sure,
stairs.
which is productive, you understand?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Walk upstairs.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Sandra, what would you say are the major successes that you've had with the Heart of Soweto project?
In terms of
Everything, in just terms of everything, what are the major successes? Is it, for instance, getting someone like Anna, who before, was breathless and who cooked with butter and who cooked with lots of oil all the time, and now is suddenly saying on national television that I don't use so much salt, I don't drink as much water as I used to, I drink enough for my body. You know, those kind of things that when you look back and you think, you know what, because of that, I think that this project has been a success.
Yeah, I think it's the people intervention, the way that they've changed their lives and the way that they're complying to treatment, and that our outcomes, we can actually see better outcomes in terms of medically she's feeling better, they've changed their eating habits, she can now walk, she's not breathless. So I think in terms of those are our outcomes, and that's the success that you feel.
Are you thinking, Prof, of extending this project just beyond Soweto because of all the good things that have come out of it?
Yes, we will actually. I've taken up a new appointment in Cape Town now, so the project will move on to Cape Town, but also to other areas in South Africa. We are waiting, we are depending on donor funding. We get some funding from the Medical Research Council and university, but a large amount of the funding is from actually foundations like Medtronic Foundation, Adcock Ingham, BHP Billiton. And it depends how much money we will have, but then we will go to other areas, other urban areas, rural areas to extend the knowledge. But there's also another effect. People who take part in the project, they talk to their neighbors. We realize they talk at libraries. There is a ping pong effect. There's a snowball effect.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is very important, that everyone who takes part in our program talks to someone they meet.
Yeah.
But Karen, a very important point. What about involving the Department of Health?
Yes.
For the whole nation?
Yes.
Sure. So have you spoken to our good friend, Dr. Aaron Matsoledi?
No, not yet. But I think.
But obviously that's the way to go.
Yeah, but he knows our project.
Yeah, sure.
I think.
I mean, the benefits of this project, Prof, having been in the industry for so many years, the benefits for the entire country would be fantastic, wouldn't it be?
Enormous.
Yeah.
Enormous.
And have you had just one challenge with this project that you could share with us?
Not really. I think in general people are very positive. I have sometimes challenged with my colleagues. They think, how can a professor for research, a cardiologist, spend so much time thinking about cooking? But I think there is nothing wrong dividing yourself. I mean, you can be a good researcher. I think I'm a good researcher, but you can also spend energy educating and talking about the research.
We would save not treating these diseases, because the sicknesses we are speaking about are very, very expensive.
Well, let's leave it there. Thank you very, very much for joining us on 3 Talk. Too often, we take the body we've been given for granted. It's time we all started taking better care of our bodies and one of its most vital organs, the heart. We can enjoy a treat every now and then in moderation. In conjunction with a healthy, balanced diet and a good exercise routine, we can all live a longer, more fulfilling life. Join me tomorrow for our Freedom Day special, where we'll be exploring the South African nuances that bind us together across all cultural and racial divides. I'll have a variety of guests in studio. We'll be talking about the common things we as South Africans share, from sports to dance to music. Until tomorrow at 15:50, from all of us, bye-bye.